Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Total Clarity Podcast. I'm Jessi.
Hello, I'm Mike Varley. La la la.
Well, hello, Mike.
Hello, Jessi.
Oh, if you haven't guessed, we're doing Seinfeld this week.
That's right. It took an extra week, but we have ourselves a Seinfeld episode to go with our Seinfeld walk.
Yeah, that's right. 2 weeks ago, we walked Seinfeld, and we delayed our podcast because we wanted to have a special guest on, and that special guest was Max Hiersteiner. He's a friend of ours who has been recently working in my studio, so we filmed in my studio. So it's a whole new soundscape, a whole new visual landscape if you're watching, and we had a really fun time.
Yeah, we did. So a little delayed gratification. You get the extra bonus of checking out what Jessi's studio looks like if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, it might be worth a peek to see what it looks like. And yeah, Max is a great guest, a devoted Seinfeld fan, and a really great sounding board for our enthusiasm for this particular walk. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Max is also a musician. So at the end of the episode, we talked about his music a little bit, the way he creates music. And we also listed all the places you can go to hear what he's been making. It's really great. I would recommend it. Really fun music that Max makes. And I'll put all the links to that in our note area on the YouTube page.
That's right. Most recent project, Hershguy, so Instagram and all the various platforms for that. And as Jessi said, there'll be links available. You should check it out. And without further ado, let's get into the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, so we're so happy to be doing this with you, Max.
Oh, I'm so happy I could be here too.
Yeah, this is great. For everyone watching, I guess we should just talk. We're currently in my studio, and part of the reason that we are filming in my studio is because it's cold outside and it's nighttime and it's a place that we could be inside. But the other reason is because Max is here to talk about Seinfeld, and Max has been working with me in my studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you working on today?
Well, today it was actually pretty orange. Today was specifically orange today.
Super orange
Yeah.
on the Orange Boys.
We used a soft orange tint, 2 to 3 tablespoons in the mix, and about 150 sweatshirts.
Wow. That's yeah, that sounds about right. It's just like piles and piles and piles.
I can't wait to move on to brown. And maybe if I work hard enough, I can eventually get to blue.
Yeah.
It's like karate belts.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it actually?
Not in that order, no. I don't know what the...
I think like in different martial arts, like brown belt is actually like the best, and then some brown belt isn't the best.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And is there even a blue belt? I don't know
Black
anything
belt
about
is the
martial
best
arts.
usually, right?
I learned that black belt is the best.
That's what I
but
always thought.
I think maybe in
1980s movies taught me that black belt is the best.
Right.
And then like stripes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know much about it.
I mean, black is also like a really hard color to dye.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
actually that's true from working
those,
with
like,
you.
We did a dipped thing together, and it took like, those jeans.
It took a really long time.
So many dips and dips and dips. Like every time we'd be like, it's perfect, and then the next day I'd come in and be like, bah, it's still gray.
I know, and I remember you were ordering darker and darker shades.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Like
You
every
got
week
jet
I was
black.
like, I got more black.
You're like, let's see if jet black works. And you're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It kind of made a difference, but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah, and it just stains everything. So
Maybe you guys should have like belt classes for the studio. And if you don't, like either make it so that there's a tier system, or just everybody gets a colored belt that they get to choose, and that's like, you're an orange belt.
that could be
I do
fun.
like those actually, because when I was in camp, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
when you would swim at the pool,
Yeah.
you would earn different, and they measured it by like sea animals. So like the first level was like a starfish,
Right.
And, like the last level was like a great white shark or like a
Whoa.
dolphin or something like that.
Did you make it all the way?
Oh, you bet. I'm always a winner.
Yeah.
No,
Nice.
I'm just kidding. I'm not, but I was a good swimmer when I was a kid.
Nice.
Oh, that's great. I'm jealous. I was like put in my high school class. We had swim class in sophomore year. And during freshman year gym, we had to take a swim test to like see which level you'd be in. And there were 3 levels, and like all the swimmers and the athletes like got into the highest like advanced swimmers class. And then basically everyone else was in like the regular like intermediate swimmers class. And after the test, I thought I did really well. Like I swam back and forth. I like didn't know the strokes, but I was like, whatever, I'm like staying afloat, and I like could like tread water. And afterwards my gym teacher called me aside and was like, so you're gonna have to go into the rudimentary swim class, which was like they had like a chair that would lower people into the water, like in that class, like as an option, because it was for people that like did not know how to swim or like were terrified of the water. It was the most embarrassing thing. I ended up taking summer school with my friends. So it was like everyone was lumped together. I didn't have to do like the rudimentary swim class, but it was very embarrassing. Needless to say, I didn't get the great white shark.
I think I still have those pins. Like
Really?
That. Yeah, probably at my like folks' house.
Oh my gosh, cute.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, we should pivot to the subject at hand because we've been super excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
People have been asking us about it. I guess it makes sense that it would be one of the more popular route ideas.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, I thought, like, when we said we were going to do a Seinfeld route, I was like, that's going to be so fun, because I like Seinfeld. But I also feel like, I thought maybe people would think it was kind of, like, easy or lame or something, because there's these tours, you know, you can go on, like, a tour of to see the special TV houses or something like that.
Right, yeah, or like maps to the stars' homes. But
Yeah,
kinda
yeah,
like
exactly.
in
It
this,
feels
like,
a little like
Seinfeld.
Beverly Hills kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, people have been really psyched, and I've been more excited about it than I actually anticipated. Like actually going to the places that I know so well from the show and seeing them in person along our route has actually been really fun.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And I always thought, when I thought about this, I just always remember when people are like, oh yeah, I went and visited San Francisco. I saw the Full House house.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
oh cool, the Full House house. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
Right.
and then now that I think about it, there's so many, like,
Oh yeah.
there's so many places on Seinfeld.
We
that,
went to
like, I would
1/50th of what there is available, you know.
If
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, we only hit the
Yeah.
greatest hits basically.
Yeah.
And what was so impressive was, I remember Jessi was telling me that there's a guy who like formed a database, like
Yeah.
with like
Yeah, Jessi spoke with
all-
him.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up because, yeah, mapsaboutnothing.com. I got to I got
So
to speak with
funny.
the person that put that all together, and I'll definitely link that all in our notes too. And it was amazing. It's this guy that's from Toronto, and he just got into watching Seinfeld at the beginning of, or I guess in like the middle of his college time, but because he was studying like really intense things with like a lot of like spreadsheets and notes and like math and stuff, the way that he watched it was by making spreadsheets and notes and like doing math and finding all the locations. And it just became this like amazing website that's like the best resource ever.
slash
For-
Yeah.
obsession slash borderline. Are you okay?
Totally.
Love you. I'm so glad somebody's doing it. But,
But
hey,
in like
what's
the
up, man?
best way.
Yeah,
Like
no,
so
totally.
like the type of like intensity that I appreciate so much.
I
Because
do,
it's
I
like
do too.
there's only such a small amount of people that would actually put in the work to do something like that.
For
and
sure.
then everybody can use it. And like so many people, I mean, when I talked to him on the phone, he said that like recently someone from Turkey reached out and was like, hey, I've also been watching Seinfeld, and like I noticed that there's some spots like in my home country, and like that's so exciting to me, and I wanted to like add to your list and make sure that you have them all right.
Yeah, damn, Turkey.
Yeah.
I wonder which spots he's talking
Yeah.
about.
Well,
I can't
so
like think off the top of my.
I can't remember. We should like consult the list and
They
fact check.
they throw in
me,
so
but-
many just like
Random, like,
stock footage, like shots of like an area, just to like, okay, now we're here for like 10 seconds about one
Right.
minor character's backstory or something.
Or even
know.
just like, I think places that are even just like referenced
Mm-hmm.
are on the
Oh,
Maps
okay,
About
got
Nothing
it.
website as well.
Yeah.
So,
I was just,
Yeah.
I would love to see where the like, I don't know, the location, like where Jay Peterman goes. and
Right,
stuff like
right.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When he's going, when I went on my trip to,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So actually, then, and when Jessi spoke with him, he looked at he did some research of his own about what we were doing, and looked at the map, and he was like, I recognize all of the spots, but Firehouse 159, that doesn't sound familiar. Can you tell me what that is? And that's what we use as our starting point for because we didn't want to put our home address on every single thing. So there's a firehouse like just half a block up, but like he was able to identify that there was one that didn't seem right in the entire map. Like he was pretty on point,
Yeah.
for a show that's been done for over 20 years now,
Yeah,
to know
totally.
exactly like this doesn't match my data,
Wow,
and even
that
a
is-
website with so much data that's like been around for a while too.
Yeah.
I think he said it was 2004
Yeah.
that he completed it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Were there any spots that like stood out to you, like on that list, or were there any places that you guys wanted to go to,
Like the most.
the most, or something like on that list that you're like, oh, I never would have thought of going there, but like, yeah, let's check that place out.
I mean, honestly, like all of them, aside from like the Soup Nazi, which we did go to, and the Tom's restaurant, which is like the monks.
Yeah, those are like the
diner.
two. That's
Those are like the two obvious ones that everybody would want to go
like
to.
the Seinfeld tour, like classic.
Right.
You have to
Yeah.
go there.
Yeah. I think my favorite spot that we went that was like the most exciting because it's kind of just like a random little note, but First Avenue and First Street, which is the Nexus of the universe. I think that's my favorite. Do you remember that? It's from the episode
Season
The
9
Maid.
episode, The Maid.
where like Jerry gets a maid and is like sleeping with his maid,
And he's paying
then
her, and he's like, is it a maid anymore? I don't know.
yeah. And then Kramer has a girl, like in the same episode, Kramer has a girlfriend that lives downtown, and they're all joking about like, wow, downtown might as well be a different country.
Yeah, long distance relationship.
Yeah. And then he goes downtown to visit his girlfriend and like calls Jerry from a payphone and is like all freaked out. He's like, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. Oh my God, wait, I'm at First and First? How can that be? I must be at the Nexus of the universe, and like is freaking out. And it's only referenced that one time, but it's like such a good line. And like, yeah, something I would never have thought. I go to First and First plenty of times, and I'm always like, oh, First and First, easy to remember. But now it's just so much easier to remember.
It's also funny how they perceive downtown.
Right.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. So there's like several threads I want to pursue, especially what you just said. But before we go too deep, because that's actually the first stop on the route, so we can pick up from that at any point. I did have a question that I would ask like anybody that was interested in Seinfeld, which is especially for like our general age group. Like I'm like 5 years older than Jessi. I know she's roughly the same age as you.
Yeah.
And so like that actually probably has a meaningful difference as to whenever we picked it up, because like when it was over, I was 14. When it started, I was like 5 or 6. You know. So I was curious, like, how is it that you came across it? Did you watch any of it, like when it was actually out?
Oh,
or was
yeah.
it like you did?
Oh yeah, it was like we would watch it on Thursdays.
Yeah.
It was like my sisters loved Friends and they loved ER.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for either of those
Yeah, yeah.
shows, but I loved Seinfeld, and that was right in between.
Okay.
Oh,
I think
nice.
also Mad About You was on it too, but no, it doesn't. I
That
don't
was,
think
Mad About You was at the beginning, I think, and then it tailed off towards the end. Like in the early 90s, mid 90s, Mad About You was on.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we used to watch that all the time, and also like when I was a kid, like they would rerun it like every night
Yeah.
Yeah.
with The Simpsons.
Yeah.
So it'd be like Simpsons and Seinfeld.
Totally. Are you local? Did you grow up locally or?
No, I grew up in Boston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels kind of low. It's like at least East Coast.
Yeah, it's a couple hours
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
For sure.
Did your parents watch it too, or was
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
you and your sisters?
My parents watched it too.
It was
yeah.
a whole family affair.
Yeah, it was a whole family affair.
Nice.
It kind of still is, actually.
Really?
Like, we're still cracking Seinfeld jokes.
Nice.
Nice.
And I don't see them very often, and I haven't seen them in a while. But every time that we all gather, like, there's always, like, one night where we'll watch a few episodes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's really fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and my sister's husband, actually both my sisters, both of my brothers-in-law love Seinfeld, so it's just like really easy to like.
Family affair.
Yeah.
That's nice.
We're all on the same wavelength when
Yeah.
it comes to Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And are your sisters older than you?
Yeah.
Nice. Like how much older?
One's 4 years older and the other's 7,
Okay.
and they both live in Boston still.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we're always cracking Seinfeld jokes,
Nice.
like all the time. Actually, it's kind of weird because it wasn't until like just now that I like am starting to get like a little teeny tiny bit burnt out on it.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I've been crushing it for like I don't know, like over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
20, almost 30 years. Who
Yeah.
knows? But-
Yeah.
So I'm just like, and now it's on the streaming service, so you can like watch any episode you want.
Yeah.
Anytime, yeah.
And what's like when you're watching it, typically, what's your level of engagement? Like, is it on in the background? Are you very focused? Are you're doing something?
Yeah, I'm
like,
usually watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cracks me up every
Yeah,
time too.
Yeah. That's great.
Just the pace is so good.
It's
Oh,
so
love it.
good, especially the later ones. Like I feel like, I mean, I also, I don't know if I watched any of it as it was actually coming out. I might have, but like my dad would put it on. So I'd watch it with him and then my mom would watch it too. And like, yeah, it was something that everyone could enjoy. And even like when I was younger, whether they were new ones or not, it was like appropriate enough that I don't think my parents cared, but also like inappropriate enough that it was like, I was like, oh, what? Like, what is that? That's fun. This is funny. And like a little bit like something I'm not usually like allowed to watch or something.
Right. Yeah.
But I feel like because of that, I probably caught a lot more of the older ones, and the pacing on the last seasons is insane.
I know, it's so wacky.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The plots just throw you off guard, like, or catch you off guard so quick.
Yeah.
Like, it takes such a quick right turn
And
or
just
left
like
turn.
so many things happening all at once, and then somehow they all like merge in the weirdest way, and it's like it's just so perfect because it's like it's all so obviously like beautifully written, but it's also somehow like realistic in a weird way.
I love how it complements how realistic it is with how unrealistic it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely create this tight universe, which is like, yeah, I'm sure there's been like all sorts of like criticism, like academic criticism and stuff like that, like written about Seinfeld. I haven't seen any of it, but I'm sure like people have invested the time. We spent this time watching all the episodes that corresponded to the route we were on, and it more or less, not intentionally, it just happened to really take us through like 1 or 2 episodes each season. And like watching how the pacing evolves is remarkable, because the first couple of seasons, it's more like almost like an All in the Family type pacing, like where it's like it's slower. They're also like doing a lot more like different camera stuff. Whereas like by the time season 4 or 5 comes around, it's like they know exactly what they want to do with the camera. They're not really trying to do anything fancy or different. It's really just like boom, boom, boom. And yeah, like I one time, there was a period of time where I was just curious to like figure out like how you would write an episode of Seinfeld. So I just watched it to like figure out how long the camera, like you were in a given scene. And like some of the later episodes, you're not like 45 seconds is the longest amount of time you're like in one setup before they go to like another beat where like we follow Kramer for a little bit to get where his story is, and then we follow Elaine for a little bit, and then we follow George, then we go back to Kramer who's intersected with Jerry, and like they're only like 15 to 20 seconds, and then it's like play the bass, and then like here's another thing, you know, it's like
a great example is like when they run into friends on the street.
Yeah.
And something like, hey, how's it going? Something weird happens, some weird exchange.
Yeah.
And it's really short, but it's so significant.
Yeah.
And it just continues.
Yeah. And you're just like, okay, I don't know why that's significant yet, because they couch it in like a joke. You know, it's like a very jokey thing. It's like, all right, you don't even necessarily think like this is going to play, but you know it will, and then it does, you know, at some point.
Right. Well, also the like, I don't think they did this in the beginning, but starting a few seasons in, how there's like long running jokes where like you might meet that friend on the street and they'll say something that doesn't even come in till the end of the, like it might not even come until the next episode sometimes in like the later seasons. And I feel like it's like in a perfect way where it like kind of doesn't matter if they don't plug it in. But it also, and it doesn't really matter if you don't know what they're talking about when they reference it later, but if you get it, you're like, oh my God, like that's so good.
You feel special. You're like, did they plant that there for me?
Right, exactly.
Well, there was a wild one that I certainly didn't get when it was on, and we wouldn't have gotten if we just hadn't happened to see these two episodes like back to back. But when Elaine works for Pendant Publishing, and it's Mr. Pitt or
Mr. Lipman?
No, Lipman.
Yeah.
Mr. Pitt is the...
Mr. Pitt's the, like, wealthy guy who needs a...
He's just wealthy, and she works for him. Mr. Lipman, when she's dating Jake Jarmel, I think, who's, like, the perfect guy, but he doesn't put an exclamation point on...
a baby announcement.
You know, her friend had a baby. He was taking a phone message, and the friend was going to have a baby, and he didn't write an exclamation point, so she dumped him, right? Okay. And then, but then
she started adding exclamation points in all of her edits.
Yes, of his book. And Mr. Lipman was like, you can't do this. Okay, you remember that.
He's like, so I decided to go to the store. Exclamation point.
Yeah, exactly. So, like 3 seasons later, she's not working for Mr. Lipman anymore, and it's the Kramer reality tour.
And the muffin tops.
And the muffin tops. And Mr. Lipman decides to start the top of the muffin to you.
Because he got fired or something like that. I can't remember.
Because they were at like a gathering together, and Elaine was just eating the top of a muffin, and Mr. Lipman just happened to be there.
And she was like, "This is the best part anyway." She's like just stuffing herself. She's like, "It's the best part of the muffin."
Right, exactly.
And
something stupid like that.
Yeah, I don't remember why he doesn't work at Pendant Publishing anymore. There's probably another episode we didn't see where it's explained, but he opens up the muffin shop, and it's top of the muffin to you with an exclamation point. And Elaine goes to Lipman and is like, you know, we got to lose the exclamation point, though. And he's like, no, the exclamation point is what makes it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's 3 seasons later.
Yeah. And it's not like, they don't reference the idea that, like, that is the joke, like, that is the larger meta joke. Like, she just lets it go. But, like, if you are a fervent watcher, like, or if you just happen to see them, like, two next to each other for some random reason, then you get the joke. And I'm sure there are tons of jokes like that, because it's Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. Like, I'm sure they just kind of, you know, bake it all in.
Yeah.
So. Damn, that's a good catch.
Yeah,
I love Mr. Lipman episodes. Like the one where his son has the bar mitzvah. So she brings him Yahtzee, and he kisses her.
Oh, right. I'm a man.
I'm a man. Yeah. And then at the end, Mr. Lipman tries kissing Elaine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Was that the Shik's Appeal episode?
I can't.
I think so.
I don't remember.
Anyway, like she has this hold over Jewish men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or it's the Kavorka.
There's the guy with the glasses at the end, and he's like.
The rabbi?
Yeah. No, I'm not sure. Yeah, it is the rabbi.
Okay,
the rabbi asks him out on a date. Too.
Yeah. The rabbi comes in periodically too. Yeah.
He's funny.
Yeah. So we should. Okay, now let's kick off the actual walking things. with the Nexus of the universe, circling
Okay.
back to that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch on what you said before about downtown, because it blows my mind too. Like downtown is like no man's land on Seinfeld in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. Like there's that episode where Kramer's lost for some reason, but like pretty much everything happens from the Upper West Side to Midtown, and there's not much else going on downtown.
Yeah.
Even though Jerry himself would probably have spent and did spend a lot of time downtown as a comedian, but
You would think so, yeah, or at least like in Midtown.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really realized that actually until this week that we've been watching it. Because I think I watched a lot of Seinfeld like at my parents' house growing up, and then maybe like would watch it sometimes, but never never really put that together, like how non-downtown they are. And it's bizarre for me because of like ever since I've lived in New York, like, the first place I lived was in the East Village, and then have only moved like downtown or Brooklyn from there.
I almost don't even like. I know there is, of course, but when I think of like uptown, like where they live in Seinfeld, I like don't even think of like anything
Right.
there.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think
Yeah.
of like culture or like anything like loud or edgy or anything.
Totally.
Right.
So weird. I just think of like people. I mean, I know I'm wrong. There's plenty of stuff going up in those
Of course.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't think of it as the same thing as like, things happening downtown. At least
Yeah.
pre-COVID,
Right.
I'm talking.
Pre-COVID,
But
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, there's
it's bland. That's the word I think.
Yeah,
of.
well,
When
there- I
think
mean,
of
it's
that kind of like style.
generally not, you can't say everything's completely any one thing, right? But
Right,
it's like
of course.
generally an affluent area,
Yeah.
people that have money. It's generally, there are a lot of like Jewish institutions, like Zabar's, Barney Greengrass, things like that, like where that might be what you would be thinking of. But it's also like the buildings are like immaculate. It feels like very sanitized up there, or just like everything's just in its place.
I just think of like doormen.
Right, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And so, it kind of, when, again, we're watching these episodes, I know, like, I've seen interviews with Jerry. I've certainly watched a lot of comedians in cars getting coffee. Like, I'm interested in his whole thing. And my understanding is that he was never one of the guys to, like, hang out after the shows so much. Like, he was definitely not a drugs guy. Like, he was not in the Richard Lewis crowd of, like, guys that were, like, getting all screwed up on drugs. Like,
Yeah.
he was more of, like, he did his thing. He loved comedy. He would talk about comedy with anybody, but then he'd go away. He wouldn't stay, and do that. And then I guess it seems like from that perspective, the Upper West Side makes more sense because it's like not, like a drug spot, not really like, it doesn't have that grittiness or that
Yeah.
type of thing. I don't know.
So that's kind of where that's where they kind of like set the location. Do you think based on how he,
But his life, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yes,
seems that way,
how he
yeah.
like separated himself from his circuit or the comedy circuit.
It seems that way. And
Yeah.
that, like, when you talk about season 4, the pilot, which is, like, a lot of that season is based on them trying to get the show made.
Oh, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, yeah. It's like it's funny, this is called Jerry.
So
Yeah.
funny.
But it's like, they're literally pitching as, yeah, it's just your life. This is what you do, and like his actual home is only like 1 block away from where the fictional home is.
Yeah.
It's on West 81st Street, and like his is like just a block closer to Central Park.
Well, like what you're saying about how he in real life didn't like hang out with comedians after and do drugs and stuff like that. It's reminding me of one of the episodes that we watched was the sniffing accountant.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember that one?
where Kramer goes to the club to like.
To like
To Pete's Tavern, which is one of the locations we went to on
Oh, you
18th
went to
Street.
Pete's?
which
yeah,
is downtown. Was what
Downtown.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
Like funny
He's
that
like wearing a turtleneck and
Yeah.
like little like John
Yeah, yeah.
Lennon glasses.
It's
He's like,
so
here's to good
good.
living.
yeah.
here's to
Here's to having fun all the time, or what?
God, no.
Here's to feeling good all the
Feeling
time.
good
Here's
all
to
the
feeling
time.
good all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that is an amazing. I read that take where he's like smoking a cigarette and chugging a beer. Like he did all of like that was real. And
Right.
like he flips the cigarette around and like puts it backwards in his mouth. Like that was real. He did that. Like he's an amazing physical comedian.
How the heck did they find that guy?
Well,
Seriously,
he was
like,
on.
He's just so jittery and
yeah.
like perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They thought about using Tony Shalhoub. That was like an option.
Yeah.
Who's
And-
Tony Shalhoub?
Monk?
Oh, I love Tony Shalhoub.
I love him too.
He was on
And
Wings as well. I mean,
and
he's
he
had
was
a very
on-
successful.
He
he's
would have
the-
made like a great Kramer, but like so different.
It would have been really, really
It's
different.
so perfect as
but
it
I
is.
can actually picture. That's fun to think about. Like
Right.
if it were him. He's
Yeah.
on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel too,
Yeah.
right? He's great on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
He's
really
great on
good.
that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the physical comedy that exists in Seinfeld. I mean Kramer, obviously, but like all of them to some degree. I mean Jerry is probably the
George.
weakest of the four.
Yeah.
But
George running.
yeah,
And like falling down and
Yeah, yeah.
like,
George being like trying to. Also Newman when Newman
And
smells
Newman, yeah.
jambalaya and he starts running down the side.
yeah.
Amazing.
George falling when he sang Vandalay Industries in the episode where he has
and
it's
his
the Keith
pants
Hernandez
down?
episode, where he's trying to convince Kramer not to blow it. And Elaine also, I mean, she's always pushing people, like get out.
Yeah.
And when she does the dancing and like and it's not like Jerry doesn't have those things, but he's like the quintessential straight man for everybody else's insanity, So it's just anytime he brings it up a notch, it almost seems awkward because that's not what his role is, But he can bring it just as much as anybody too. So.
He's
But
kind of the secret weapon, actually.
Yeah.
All the other characters are so loud, and he's tame, and then every so often he'll bring it
Yeah.
real hard.
Well, back in the vaudeville days, like Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello, like the straight man versus the physical comedian always got paid more.
really?
Yeah, because it was considered like a lesser comedy art to do all the physicality, and the idea was like, they're replaceable. Like the straight man is the one that was important.
oh, that's so
Interesting.
wild.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know that it would be the same. I mean, I guess Seinfeld probably wouldn't be a good judge because
I wonder if Chris Farley got paid less than David Spade did.
I think by the time
that's a great question.
I think by the time that came around, it wasn't. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
But like,
for sure.
I think it was people realized like funny is funny, and like also with I think like cameras being a bigger thing, like actual recorded versions. People were like, I want to see that person, not just like I'm here to see a comedy act with a guy that's bumbling around and a guy that's
Right.
like telling the jokes,
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Kramer is, it just anytime he comes on, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that actually was something I've noticed recently watching it too. I think everyone feels that way because when there's, I guess, is it a live audience? That's true.
It
'cause
is.
Every time Kramer comes in the door at Jerry's apartment, not every time, sometimes it's a huge cheer.
Well,
Most times it is. Not every time.
I noticed
but-
that as well. And what I've observed based on the episodes we saw is that like seasons 3 and 4 is like a Beatles like phenomenon. Like the people that are cheering when like the different characters come on, it's not just like, hey, they're here. It's like, yes, they're here. This is amazing.
Oh my God!
Like,
I've been waiting my whole
Yeah.
life for this.
yeah, like you catch the cultural phenomenon of Seinfeld, like because the first couple of seasons, I mean, the first season they didn't even know if it was going to be still on,
Right.
and they found their water level, and then like it became a phenomenon, and then like towards the later ones, it's not that it wasn't a phenomenon; it was more just like, well, this is like you have to perform at this level every
Oh,
episode,
interesting,
and so
yeah.
like there wasn't that same level of like Beatlemania, I think.
Right.
I really don't think I truly understood the level of popularity
Yeah,
that the show had when I was watching it as a kid.
yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
I was like watching that Michael Jordan documentary. Like,
Oh
a couple
yeah,
of
I was
days
going to bring
ago.
that up. at some point.
And there's like a scene where Jerry comes into the locker room and just
Yeah.
says, "What's up?" to Michael, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
He's up there. Jerry's up there with Michael.
Totally.
Like, all right.
Totally. I mean,
I guess.
yeah,
That's
him.
so crazy.
Yeah.
I think we before we started the actual walking part of our project, we did like 4 or 5 podcast episodes, and one of the weeks we talked about the Jordan documentary because, we were sitting around, we couldn't walk yet, we watched the whole thing, and I feel like him, Michael Jordan, Jerry Seinfeld, Michael Jordan, and Bill Clinton are like the 3 of the most prominent shapers of American culture in the 90s.
90s.
Yeah.
Huh.
And like
Yeah.
honestly, I have like really deep complaints about each of like how they decided to like live their lives. Like in that like I think that we're still contending with some issues of like kind of indifference to like the rest of the world around us because of their behavior. I mean, Clinton's a different thing because it's a political thing, but like Jordan and
Still a pop culture icon though.
yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, when you talk about like the crime bill that they passed and like the super predator thing, where like they wanted to be, I mean, neoliberal. They basically like, we're going to take some positions of the Republicans in order to show strength so that we can have votes. But it became problematic way down the line because it created this awful, imprisonment system. With Jordan, we had talked about it. It was really troubling to me, especially because we're doing all this clothing stuff, right? Where like we're trying to identify where the clothes come from and whatnot. And like he just signed up for Nike and was like, let's ride this as hard as we can. And like I'm not going to give a second thought about where these clothes are coming from or anything like that. We're just going to make a shit ton of money based on my branding, And like he really felt like, that in the Jordan documentary, there was a political race where people were pressuring him to like come down on one side.
Yeah.
It was like a Senate race in North Carolina.
Right,
And he was
I
like,
remember that.
he said, Republicans buy my shoes too, and he thought it was his place, or he thought it was not his place to insert himself into those types of conversations.
Must be tough being that popular and picking a side.
Totally.
Or having an
Yeah.
opinion for that matter.
I mean,
on
I think,
anything.
Especially if you get that popular because like everyone likes you and because you are kind of like uninvolved. It must,
Like I
I
don't want to
mean-
let anyone down.
yeah, or like I don't want anyone to like start fighting me or start like saying bad things about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so in a similar way, I feel the same way about Jerry. I mean, a show about nothing, right? Like you spend 9 years making a show about nothing. But like really, it's not a show about nothing. Like it has to connote some things ultimately. Like it is seeping into the culture in some meaningful way. And, I agree 100% with what you say. It's like it must be difficult to come down on a side. But when you've accumulated that much level of like pop culture power and influence, like it feels important to me to like at least make it clear that you're on some type of good side, or like just pick something where I can feel like you're using all of this attention that's being given in a way that influences the world positively, rather than totally being like, I abstain because it's not my responsibility to do this. And it's like, but you have all this power, like just saying I am not, it's not my job. I don't feel like that's sufficient enough for me,
It's been quite interesting tracking other celebrities and figures around the world over the past 4 years too, because there were a lot of people that wouldn't say shit like during these past 4 years.
Totally.
Yeah.
Finally,
Yeah.
some
It's
people
true.
are eventually. Some took longer than others, but people are finally starting to say stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know if it's like that concept in general. I don't know if it's that I'm getting older. I hate that, I hate using that, but whatever. I don't know if it's that I'm like getting older and wiser or whatever and like more comfortable speaking about things myself, or if it's our culture changing or what. Like, I do think there's something that, like, you could maybe get away with maybe 10 or 15 years ago being like, I don't want to get involved. And now, like, I think we do all see that that's pretty lame to, like, be a public figure and not get involved.
Also, I don't think it was even really, like, that cool to be, like, active, like, even 4 years ago. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Or, like, pre
Pre-Trump
2016
and then
election.
Definitely.
I just think the past 4 years, it's, like, really cool to be.
Yeah.
I think it's cyclical, you know? Like so kind of this larger theory, I'll just you'll keep trashing on Jerry until I can praise him again at some point. But like, you know, I think about like the 60s, right? Which was like, that was a time there was a lot of people that were politically active. At least, you know, romantically, I wasn't there, but that's how I understand it, that there were a lot of people that were politically engaged. There's also this concept of free love for the first time, you know, where like we're going to get rid of like the sexual mores problems, like, we're not going to be beholden to like religious ideas of what sexuality is. We're going to embrace sexuality and treat it as like a beautiful thing. And then that whole thing got soundly defeated by Richard Nixon, and then like the 70s was kind of like drugs and like we're just going to do sex, but we're not going to like have any like necessarily like, you know, like free love, like positive feelings associated with it. And I think like when I look at the episode like Seinfeld, and I'm not sure that this existed before in a sitcom or in like any type of media, but like every week they have different romantic partners. Every single week, you know? And like, I honestly, like, I thought about it today, like, that seems totally normal to me. When you talk about, like, they create this universe that feels really real, but it's also unreal, like, because it's such a tight logic to each episode, I don't question the fact that he probably had, like, 200 different romantic partners, and George, who at best is an average-looking guy, and at worst is a like miserable human being, has been with like 150 different people, and you know, and Kramer and Elaine, they're all with different people, and like we don't like stop to think like, or like my parents, not that they did a bad job, like they didn't stop and talk to me, or you know, none of the other parents stopped and been like, you know, this isn't real.
No.
Like,
not everybody dates somebody every week.
Right. But I kind of think like that informed us growing up, where it's like, oh yeah, you just have as many partners as you want, and like it's totally normal. And like not only is it normal, like it is I think acceptable to live your life that way potentially, but like it's almost like unacceptable if you can't reach that threshold of like, I'm going to have as many partners as possible while I am not married in a relationship. It is normal for me to like have a different relationship and then like get out of that relationship, like get into a relationship, get out of a relationship, you know, like there's just,
and like for no, like, I mean, and that's like part of why the show is so funny, is because like, yeah, Elaine broke up with someone because he didn't put an exclamation point, and like every time they break up, it's like, well, her laugh was crazy, or her like, what her face changed. I mean, the two-faced one is
shallow.
like, all so shallow, and like, yeah, not always just like physical shallow, but like so superficial, and like that's why it's so funny, because it's so absurd. But I guess I haven't really thought about that, but you're kind of onto something. Like, it definitely doesn't encourage people to like work through like differences with each other, or like figure out common ground, or like work on a relationship, like, oh, I like this person except for this one thing, I'm sure we can talk about it. Like it teaches like blow up, freak out, go tell your friends how crazy they were, and like laugh about it. And the only time it's like resolved is at the very end of the show, when they're all like when you find out that they're bad people.
Yeah, at the very end.
right. Yeah. And like, I mean,
that is great.
I think the counterpoint that maybe he would make, or, you know, the show creators would make, is that like, it's all like the platonic ideal of comedy, right? Which is to say, like, we just strip out all the emotion, all the like surrounding context of what this could mean, because we're just trying to make a show about like jokes, jokes, and like not worry about like the fact that, there hundreds of people are getting dumped over reasons that are completely trivial. These people are complete infants when it comes to maintaining relationships, and like, and because they probably presume like, well, nobody would assume life is that way, but like, they are probably some of the most meaningful adult role models I had growing up, which sounds perverse, but like, if you watch it an hour a day after The Simpsons for like 5 years, and then you watch it, you're 20 years, like people just watching this all the time, like it goes in somewhere,
It sticks with you.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It definitely shaped my humor.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
What I like to look out for.
Yeah.
How I perform.
Yeah. Totally.
I was actually going to specifically ask you that because I did not think about these other things, and I think you're onto something in some way, although I'm sure we all had other role models for like how to shape our relationships. But the thing that I think is really positive about it is that I think it has like shaped a culture of humor that people can understand without putting words to it. And like I feel like I see that in like the things you say and the things you like do and how you perform. And like, do you feel like you have a way to explain how it's shaped your humor?
It definitely like helped me realize that I enjoy when people don't take themselves too seriously, or you can make fun of them, but it's not really, they want you to do it. So I think of those characters when I watch it. You notice all the horrible characteristics about them and how the whole show is revolved around that. It made me want to I just don't ever want to take my performing too seriously, and I always want to be people to make fun of me, and it's just fun. That's how I like to go about my life, so I think it has had a pretty significant impact on how I go about my life all day, every day.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and like I think in our like whole generation, there's an element of being able to be like kind of an asshole in a way that like is funny, and that if people get that humor, they know it's funny, and they know, and like you can kind of like play on the surface of that. So I think that's a benefit to like what it's given our generation.
I think it might just be one of those things that is beyond positive or negative, and it's just like so foundational.
I guess it just is what it is. Yeah.
Because I also think it could potentially make it so that people have a hard time being sincere with each other. But, whatever. We can figure out other ways to do that. But I do think that it is informed a whole other, like the past 20 years, 30 years of like stand-up comedy. Like, I think that some of our biggest truth tellers in society now are stand-up comics.
Right.
In a way that like, maybe that used to be priests or people that like were morally like their whole vibe was talking about morals. Now our morals are tempered with comedy at the same time. So like it can be something that's actually like risque or like not like a direct message of like hope or change or anything like that, but you hope that people get that message, and if at any time, the real trick to that is if at any time people come at a stand-up comic and like say that their message isn't pure, or they're like somehow offending another thing, or like setting back culture, then they can be like, hey, it's just comedy, lay off me, it's just comedy, it's just a joke, you can't take a joke. Whereas like people that are like sincerely communicating morality can't hide behind that type of thing. They have to either stand up and say what they're saying or not, So I just think it's a different type of quality of how we're communicating in terms of what's good or bad. And yeah, it's fun to, I think that America has a tremendously sophisticated sense of humor. And that isn't to belittle any other country. I really think that like the idea that we have like the freedom of speech is such like a thing that we talk about, and like the idea it's like you have a right to offend people, and the idea that like, I don't know, we're also just like such a huge exporter of media that, we like Seinfeld is something that's like a cultural shorthand, you know, like we have all of these like tremendous like shorthands for comedy that we can just employ in a conversation. Like before, I mean, it's Seinfeld specific, but we got some Thai food, and then you would reference the Thai iced tea, and you made a reference to Banya. It's gold, Jerry. You know, like, and it's like, yeah, that was like, you didn't have to explain what that was. It wouldn't have mattered if we were recording this episode or not. Like, we all would have known what that was, you know? And that's just like one sliver of this probably like larger tapestry of comedy influences Americans have that they can access at any point, you know?
Well, there's a bunch of, I can't remember the list now. Maybe you guys remember some of these things, but like there's also a number of things that have just come from Seinfeld that we take for granted. Like the idea of like re-gifting.
Oh, yeah?
Apparently
like
it's from
re-gifting
Seinfeld.
and like the double dip.
And the double dip.
Sure.
And the yada, yada, yada.
Or, yeah. I love when they come up with terms for that. And if you go into Curb Your Enthusiasm, Marty Funkhauser becomes a practicing Jew and doesn't want to go play in the golf competition because it's during the Sabbath.
Right.
And Larry's like, "Oh, you're co-faxing us?" Because Sandy Koufax is known for not starting the game.
Yeah.
I was like, I love when they like make it. They like coin something.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's crazy when it like they coin something and it's funny. Probably like whenever it first was said, it was like, oh, that's funny and silly. But then it like becomes a real like a thing.
Yeah.
That you like lose where it even came from.
Yeah, totally.
Which is great.
All right, I keep saying that we should, but we should go over the locations. We'll do it quicker.
Okay.
So we started with the Nexus of the universe, right? First and First Avenue. We walked over the Williamsburg Bridge, and we started there. And then from there, we go to the Sniffing Accountant episode, which is Pete's Tavern.
Where is Pete's Tavern?
That's on 18th.
18th and 3rd, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And it's still a Pete's Tavern?
It's still Pete's Tavern.
Yeah,
Cool,
it was.
cool.
It's funny. It says on the exterior, the bar O. Henry made famous. O. Henry, the short story writer who wrote Gift of the Magi and whatnot. But now it's kind of like the bar that Seinfeld also made famous.
Very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it open?
They were opening it. They were putting up Christmas decorations.
And then I'm sure they're having like takeout beers that everyone can drink outside or something
yeah,
like
it
that.
looked like they had a little like outdoor seating.
Got it.
But
Yeah.
fortunately, it did not look like it was in any trouble, which I can't say the same for every location that we visited.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure a lot of the locations like became something different now.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least one of them, which I told you already, but we'll tell it when we get to it.
I do remember. I can't remember which one you.
Perfect.
which one it was.
And so there is a place that still exists, but not as it was in the show's time. So there was it's now the Producers Club, and formerly it was, I don't know if it was the Improv, I forget what it was.
Oh, the Improv Theater, I think maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's on 44th and 9th, and that is also the site of where the J. Peterman reality tour started.
Oh, the one that Kramer starts?
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
That's season 8. That's the Muffin Tops episode that we referenced as well. But yeah, now it is it's the Producers Club still, and that's also, you know, all the opening went back when they did the first, I don't know, 6 seasons or however, when he was doing the stand-up as like the intro and the outro of the show.
Yeah.
That's where they did all of those recordings.
At the Improv Club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was I mean, that was a pretty good episode. I feel like that one wasn't as good as some of the other ones we watched personally. like Jerry he's shaving his chest,
Oh, that's the
and
same
he's like a
one,
werewolf
yeah.
at the end.
Yeah.
And what else? That's the Lipman top of the muffin, and
And Kramer has the best.
oh, I did like this one. This is probably my favorite storyline where George poses as a tourist to date that girl from the tourism board.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember
she's
that.
like, "You'll never make it in this city, George." And he like moves out of his apartment to move back in, and like tells her she got the job with the Yankees. And then Mr. Steinbrenner finds out he was working for the chicken place back in Arkansas, so he gets traded to Arkansas for a bucket of chicken or something. It was just that was funny. I also like that one because George is wearing fun clothes.
He's wearing someone else's clothes the whole time. He was like asked to watch a suitcase, and then the guy never comes back, so he like wears all of his clothes.
Oh yeah, and so he ends up looking like a tourist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then after that, we go to the Soup Nazi one, which I'd never. Have you ever been to the Soup Nazi?
No.
Yeah. Go on. You
No,
look like-
but Max has a story about this.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I have
yeah.
a Soup Nazi story.
Oh yeah, tell us.
I was leaving class and I was walking through Union Square.
Yeah.
And there was a big Seinfeld tour bus, and I was like, Seinfeld tour bus. This is kind of crazy. I thought it was just a bus with like a huge Seinfeld commercial.
Yeah.
So I like went closer to the bus and I saw the Soup Nazi there, and he was like handing things out.
He was running the tour.
I think he was just somebody on the show.
Oh, okay.
Or on the tour.
Yeah.
And he was like giving out autographs.
Okay.
And they were like promoting something Seinfeld. I can't remember exactly. But if you go on the bus, I was like half asleep and I was walking by and I was like, oh my God. And went over to him and I was like, you're the fucking Soup Nazi. He's like, yep, no soup for you. And he said it really normally too.
Yeah.
His name's Larry Thomas.
Yeah.
Got a picture with him, got his autograph.
Yeah.
This was all at like 9:30 in the morning. Too,
Yeah.
So I was like,
And you're in
Jesus
college
Christ.
and like,
So to
Yeah.
clarify, is this the Soup Nazi from the show or the actual like real life Soup Nazi?
The one from the show.
Okay. Yeah.
And he looked like he hadn't aged a day.
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
He looked exactly the same. He was wearing the same outfit. And then I went on the bus, and then they had all these great Seinfeld, like George's mom as a doll.
Oh
And
yeah.
the puffy shirt and the Gore-Tex.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Among many other things
Yeah.
on the bus. But that was like a really funny morning.
Amazing.
That's my Soup Nazi story.
Nice. It's
so
great
good.
that when like people can embrace that,
Yeah.
like this is what I'm gonna be known for the rest of my life. So like
Yeah,
I'm
he
gonna just
probably
ride
will.
it out. you
Yeah,
know?
he's probably been riding it out for
20
20
years almost.
20
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably made some good money from it too.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, now my phone, because we've been searching Seinfeld, like my phone is now telling me about all this Seinfeld stuff. Apparently, he makes like over $100K a year, doing stuff. So
Just
good for
like
him.
probably like appearing at parties and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I think he's also a stand-up. So he
Oh,
goes
nice.
and does his comedy bits at shows too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Well, we went to the original. It's called the Original International Soup Kitchen, I think is the name of the restaurant. What it looks like, what the Soup Nazi was based on.
Yeah.
And it's delicious.
Yeah,
We
it
got
was
soup.
very good.
We got soup and we went and like stood in a corner and drank
We
it.
stood basically in a construction site because,
Yeah.
it's just the city. We're
'Cause
trying to
it's
find an
COVID
out of the
and you
way
have
place.
to, like, hide
Yeah.
somewhere
And
to
we're just
eat.
drinking it like, it's coffee.
Was
but
it
it was
good?
delicious. Yeah, it was really
it was
good.
very good. The
Does it have
original
any,
soup
like-
kitchen.
Does it have any Seinfeld?
Yeah,
It
it does.
does.
It has like a poster of the guy that you met, I guess, and it says
Larry
no soup for
Thomas?
you. And then it has a picture of George, Jason Alexander, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, soup for me.
Yeah.
And like a couple little signs that are like, it's us.
So
Amazing.
Yeah.
so you get the soup, right? And then you also get so when we went together, there was an apple inside and then an Andes candy, like a chocolate mint, as well. So that was
Yeah.
nice. Like we just expected soup, and then I went yesterday because I still wanted soup, and I was in the area, and I got a banana and a Linder candy. So like I don't know if like different days of the week maybe get like a strawberry and a Twizzler or like something, but like it was nice to have like a little dessert, a little piece of fruit, and then whatever soup you got.
Yeah.
That
So-
is really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cute. It's like the opposite of what they show in the show. Like,
Yeah, it's
and,
like
and they were
banana
so
it's
nice.
Banana
and like,
Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
and yeah, especially, you were just saying they were so nice. It was especially different from the show in that it was not at all like the systematic, thing that you see in the show, which apparently it was at one time, but I don't know if how long ago they gave that up or if they gave it up because of COVID, but it was like actually annoyingly the opposite. Like there were people that like we got there and somebody was like, "Oh, you go ahead of me," and it's like, it's okay, no, you can go.
Have you ever been here before?
Yeah,
great.
And then and then like people were coming like stepping ahead of us, and we're like, "Hey, you can't." No, we are next, and like it was just kind of this like milling about of people in front of the store, and it was just funny that it was so different than like what it actually was. On the balance, I'd prefer that to like the like one crab bisque, please, and then move to the side. But yeah, and the guy was just he was super nice.
Yeah, he was nice and like moved slowly.
Yeah,
it was fine.
And they seem to be doing well with business.
Yeah,
these days.
they seem to be holding up. I mean, we've walked by a number of times, and there's always like people getting soup.
I mean, the place is like constructed to be served right onto the street anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it
Just almost a window.
Yeah, basically.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it impacted the business really in any way. And then the next episode was The Secretary, which I'm trying to figure out.
George's secretary.
George's
Yep.
secretary.
Uh-huh.
Who gets a raise.
Yes, I'm giving you a raise.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
And that was, we picked that one because that's also the episode where Elaine is a victim of the mirrors at Barney's. The mirror, they were skinny mirrors.
It's a skinny mirror.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and that one, and so we went
The
by
black-
where Barney's used to be.
Yeah,
The
used
black
to be.
dress. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Exactly.
right. So yeah, Barney's isn't there anymore.
Where was it?
It's on Madison Avenue, I think 600.
61st or something?
600, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but they closed.
or 660, one of the two.
Was
last
that the
year.
only Barney's? Or was that like
I'm pretty
the
sure-
famous Barney's?
I'm pretty sure it's the only. There might have been some like. No, I think it was just that one store.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but they went out of business like sometime last year or the year before, I think.
Yeah, and now it's a Fred's restaurant at Barney's. Like I don't
Fred's
know.
restaurant.
Yeah, I don't know if they're trying to do a Flintstones like gag or the owner's really named Fred.
Oh, Fred and Barney.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it's not open right now either. It's like COVID closed. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that, I feel like, just a brief aside, because we talked about this a little bit earlier.
yeah.
That episode, the secretary episode, like, we were talking about, like, what holds up and what doesn't. And that one, I'd say, like, fully does not hold up.
Well, because
Just as far as, like, and I'm not even, like, I'm not offended, but just as far as, like, would this be made today?
right.
And, like, the fact that George is, like, hiring a secretary and he has to, like, specifically hire an unattractive woman so that he won't be distracted. And, like, he's being praised for, like, that's very good of you to, like, do this for someone. And then he, like, ends up sleeping with her anyway. And it's, like, this, like, on the first day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny. Like, it's still funny. And it doesn't, like, not hold up in a way where I'm, like, clutching my pearls or something. Like, it's still funny, but, like, I can never imagine that being written today.
I agree with you. I don't think it would.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that. It's just like a lot of, I mean, it's praised as being groundbreaking television, which it is. But there are also a lot of ways that they addressed certain issues that definitely wouldn't fly nowadays.
Yeah.
Totally.
That being a good example.
Yeah. No, when we watched it, I was like, this does not pass the the internal test of, like I saw it and I was like, this is shitty.
Yeah.
Why is, like, it's not only like, also George goes through the sequence where they're like two beautiful secretaries and he's like, your resume is perfect, you know all the programs, but I've forgotten my name when I look at you, so I can't hire you. Or it's just like, you're just too beautiful, I want to kiss you right now, or something like, so just like stuff that's just like, it's a
like,
joke.
I'd give
I
an
get
arm
it.
and a leg to like
Yeah.
see you naked, see a picture.
Yeah,
of you
yeah. So I'm so
Right.
sorry, you can't have a job. It's like,
Which is like that, even, and actually that part I think is like, not only would it not be written now, but like, I don't even think it would have been funny then. like that particular part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But like it's actually been rare where like rewatching a lot of these with like a critical eye, I don't feel like a lot of it I still feel like is really funny. And it, of course, like
Also, just the delivery is just.
yeah.
Yeah.
All the characters are just so. They nail it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's actually part of it. Like when it's just performed so well, it kind of like you can forgive a little bit of the like, oh, you're not perfectly like with the times because it's just performed so well.
Right.
And maybe that's part of why The Secretary doesn't hold up as well, because it's like, I don't know if the performance by George is like top notch in that particular episode. Like usually really on point, but
I think the main reason why that they pulled that off then was because they were probably like, yeah, it's George. Like,
yeah.
haven't you been watching this for the past 7 seasons? Like, he's the worst.
Right. Right.
Like, what could you expect anything more of him?
And that's such a good point too, because it isn't about like, is this gonna fly with our audience? Are they gonna think this is good? Because it's like, no, they won't, and they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it circles back to what I said before. Just like, what are you putting out into the world? And if your response is like, well, it's not real, it's like it is, like in a weird, like, it just think about when you're a creator, like even if it's not meant to be real, it is real in ways that you might not even necessarily understand, you know? So like, what are you putting out in the world? Why? And it is, I mean, I think it's cool, even though I think generally people were upset that the last episode was how it was, where they're immediately called out, or not immediately, they are roundly called out as bad people by all of the people coming back. And I think a lot of people were like, well, this isn't what I wanted. Like, it doesn't feel like a particularly good last episode. But like, at least they were like definitive, like, no, you have to understand, like, these are bad people, you know?
Right.
Don't get it twisted, you know? Yeah.
I don't think anybody likes final episodes. I think every like television show that ends, people are like, what
Generally.
a jip.
Generally,
yeah, especially when it's like on for as long as this, like one of these shows that's running for so long, and you
Right.
get so attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like 9 seasons is a long time, and then you're like, wait, they're going away and they're going to jail?
So from there, I don't know if we have an episode for this, but just up the block is either 600 or 660, I'm not sure. Pendant Publishing, where Mr. Lipman worked.
Yeah,
So for like seasons 2 to 5, that's where, or 3 to 5, something like that, that's where Elaine worked. And so, you know, it was just basically the establishing shot of whatever was happening there. So we passed there.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When there's like, they have those little scenes on the show of like a building of like a floor,
Yeah.
a certain level,
Yeah.
does that, what's it called? Facts About Nothing?
Maps About Nothing.
Maps About Nothing. Does that guy actually, is he like, it's the 8th floor of this building, like this window? Do you think he like can narrow it down that much?
I'm actually not sure. I feel like maybe. Because every time there's something listed, he also does like a little description of like why it's important in that episode. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but I feel like, I mean, if he doesn't, he definitely has the potential to do that, to figure that out.
So the next one we went to was La Boîte en Bois. Man, I don't know. I'm probably butchering that. It's a restaurant on 68th Street that I think showed up several times. But the instance that we did was the wallet episode, which is like a very Seinfeld family heavy episode where Jerry's dad thinks that the wallet has been stolen from his pocket when he's going to see the back specialist.
Oh, yeah.
And that actually doesn't pay off until later in the season. We didn't even talk about this.
No, it's like a to be continued thing.
Well, no, the episode's a to be continued, but the wallet comes back later in the season.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's stuck in Jerry's couch.
Oh,
on his couch cushion.
Yeah, and like he it causes all sorts of problems. And
'cause
Jerry's
they
dad
couldn't-
just finds it's like, whatever, at some point.
They couldn't go back to Florida or something because he lost his wallet.
Something about, I don't
Oh,
remember
wow.
exactly, yeah. But so they have dinner with Uncle Leo at La Boîte aux Bois.
Yeah.
And he has Jerry's watch on that Jerry threw out in the garbage. And because he didn't want to get it fixed because it didn't keep time. And so, yeah, Jerry buys it back from him and whatnot. And then Jerry buys a wallet for his dad. And it had Velcro. And so his dad was like, this is trash. And it had it had $400 in it.
But then Uncle Leo ends up like picking that up out of the trash too. So it's like this whole like circular like infinity loop
Yeah.
of like Jerry's parents buying him something, him throwing it away, his uncle finding it in the trash, and then
him
Jerry
buying
buying
it
his
back.
parents,
Yeah.
and like
That's so funny.
but like never being able to actually like talk to each other. It's,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
funny.
the addition of Jerry and George's parents to the show is like masterful. Like it adds like this whole other dimension of like, where do these people come from and why are they so insane, you know?
Oh,
And-
now we know why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so like I would say that Jerry's parents are on the balance less crazy. Like Jerry's mom is not really crazy,
Yeah.
other than she thinks her son is untouchable. Like he's the greatest person ever. Jerry's dad he's crazy. He just is hung up on things constantly.
Yeah.
And then George's parents are like balls to the wall, insane.
Yeah,
And it's just every time they're on is so enjoyable,
yeah. I think Frank is
Incredible.
my favorite character.
Yeah.
Frank is,
Yeah.
he is so good.
Frank and Estelle, they're
Yeah,
definitely,
they're so good.
Yeah. And of course Frank he was on the King of Queens for like 8 or 9 years too, or however
Oh,
long that
really?
show ran. Yeah, he was
I've never seen that.
he was Kevin James's dad. No, he was the wife's dad, I think.
Oh, wow.
Leah Remini or whatever. I forget her name on the show. But yeah, I mean he's Ben Stiller's father, Jerry Stiller. I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, and he had such an amazing late career. That last 20 years or so was just
An
Yeah.
icon.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So we go to that restaurant, and then we go to the dinner party episode. The dinner party episode is where they go to get the babka to join, like the chocolate babka,
Yep.
in order to go to this dinner party. And we went to the location.
Yeah, and this is the one that is no longer a bakery. It's now a Jenny Craig.
Oh, yeah,
Of all
that's what you were
things.
telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Which
Yeah.
is absurd because we were like, where's the bakery? Where's the bakery? Wait. And then we were like, no, it's a Jenny Craig. Like, just the exact opposite.
Yeah. But that was a good episode where
That's where he stole it from the old lady, right?
no, it's the marble
That's
rye.
the
Marble
other
Rye.
rye.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
babka is the one where they like are going to this party and Elaine insists that they all have to bring something. And so like George and Kramer go to get wine. Jerry and Elaine go to the bakery to get the babka. They like don't get a ticket and somebody else gets the last babka and then they get the cinnamon babka and there's a hair in it so they have to wait and this guy like steps on her foot with his cane and it's like this weird that's like I feel like that's my favorite part of it. It's just this like weird side actor that has this one moment where he steps hard on
He's like,
Elaine's
now's
foot
my big break.
Yeah.
and he's like sorry.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
has
yeah.
this like insane. It's like this so bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. But
That's
yeah.
the black and white cookie episode.
Yep.
And that's the Gore-Tex episode that
It
you were
is, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
referenced
that's right.
earlier, where George has the Gore-Tex jacket, and then they go to buy
The liquor store can't break 100, I remember.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And they
So
have
they buy
to,
the
like,
penthouse,
Yeah.
and then the Clark bar, and something else.
Yeah.
And then they get double parked in by Saddam Hussein ultimately, which is another one of those things that like, Saddam Hussein meant one thing then, and then he's like taken on these other dimensions, since then too, where it was
Right.
like, back then it was just the Gulf War, and it was like this weird week-long war we had with Iraq. And then like since then it was Operation Iraqi Freedom, and he was, tried and, executed and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a
Really
different
crazy
vibe.
reference.
Yeah,
to
for
watch
sure.
now,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
and
Yeah, and so then from there, do we go all the way up to Tom's restaurant?
yes.
Yeah. And on the way, we passed Jerry's apartment.
Yeah.
But yeah, we hit Tom's restaurant, and I think that's our last stop of the walk before we turn.
The last stop in Manhattan. There is one location we go in Queens.
Where is Jerry's house?
It's on 81st Street.
It's 129 81st, which is the same as
129 81st.
your
Because I
old
used to live
apartment
at
number.
129.
Yeah, but we
Cool.
we went to the site of where the Costanzas live.
Oh yeah, the gray.
It's a beautiful block.
Yeah,
like
I bet
it's
is.
like I don't know if it's technically a duplex. I don't know. It's like it's a giant home that has like two separate things. And yeah, it was like the birds chirping and like all the houses are like that on there. Like
Where exactly is it?
so, it's in the show. It's Kew
Forest
Gardens or
Hills.
Forest Hills.
In the
Forest
show,
Hills.
they say it's Forest
In
Hills.
the show, it's Forest Hills. In real life, it's in Astoria, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like kind of like interior Astoria, not like closer to the water, but like a
Right.
little bit closer to the in the
I'm
middle of
just
the land.
wondering, like, how are Jerry and George like even? Did Jerry grew up in Manhattan? Didn't he?
Well, Jerry Seinfeld, the human, grew up in Long Island. Jerry Seinfeld, the character, I guess grew up in Queens.
I thought it was Bayside for some reason.
Maybe.
But I don't
'Cause
remember.
I mean, I do know, I don't have all my history together, but from some of the episodes, I know that he was friends with George from a kid because there was the summer George, and then that guy, whatever his name, he had a van, and then he goes into Central Park and like digs holes.
It was like
know,
his
to
summer.
sit in.
It was like
Yeah,
his Jerry.
yeah.
It was like his Bizarro friend, like his Bizarro.
Well,
Jerry
Bizarro is a
friend,
separate
right?
thing, but yes.
But it was
basically,
like the equivalent.
it was the,
He's like, you don't like the van.
yeah.
No, I love the van.
Yeah. So George was definitely friends with him from a child, but they also both went to Queens College together on the show
Got it.
because they like one time Jerry gets an alumni newsletter, like talking about how the pilot got picked up and then dropped, and like George, it's the marine biologist episode.
Oh, yeah.
And George is like never in the alumni newsletter, but then. Yeah, later Jerry's at the ATM or something,
Yeah.
and he sees a woman who asks after George, and then Jerry says he's a marine biologist, so he has to pretend that he is,
Yeah.
But yeah, so they've known each other forever, and presumably they grew up together,
Got it.
in the same location.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And it was a nice house.
it was really nice, and yeah, I mean, I was like, it's so funny when you like. When I think about when I was younger, especially like my family is not I didn't grow up in the city, but my father and my mother were from Middle Village, Queens.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we would go there, on holidays or just random times. And I just never saw much of an appeal to Middle Village. I thought like Long Island was cooler. But now like when I look at these like Queens neighborhoods, I'm like, these are awesome. Like
Yeah.
I totally want a house here. This makes complete sense,
Yeah, for sure.
But like I'm
Yeah.
sure when I was watching Seinfeld, I was like, Queens,
I feel that way when I ride out like through Maspeth
Yeah.
and Glendale and places like that, or like any of those places. The houses look so much nicer to me now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love to be out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, and even just like, I mean, even the difference of like growing up in the suburbs and then moving into the city, and now when I see a house that has like a little yard, I'm like, that's so nice, like
Yeah.
a separated home.
Yeah,
Like, you can
yeah.
have that in Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not that far.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, I think it's all tidal, right? Because it's funny. There's an episode. Is it the baby shower or I don't know what it's called, where Jerry gets free cable and Elaine hosts
yeah.
a baby shower in his apartment and whatnot, and then George goes to confront a woman who got ketchup or something all over his chocolate
Chocolate
all
cake.
over his
Yeah.
all over his shirt, and he's telling the story of how he got the chocolate all over his shirt, and he was like, she was a performance artist, and he was like, she dragged me out to the waterfront in Brooklyn. And I had to go watch her performance piece in some warehouse. And he was just like disgusted at the idea of having to go to Brooklyn. I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like given the time and era, they were probably referencing like Williamsburg. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Larry David went out there
Yeah.
for like some, date that he just hated,
Right.
But yeah, it's just funny. Like
People like that still exist.
Totally.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I have to go to Brooklyn?
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
For me, I'm like, oh, I have to go to Manhattan? But I'm
Yeah.
also like, okay with it.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
I'm down.
Cool. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. Like, I mean, I don't want to take us on too much of a tangent, but like, it feels like how, like, your bubble too. Like, if you're used to just like being in this one neighborhood and doing everything in one neighborhood, like going even across borough feels like forever
Totally.
to get to.
Yeah.
But then if you're used to like even 1 year ago, probably going into the city is like, I have to go into the city today. Whereas now, like, we just walk, like, we just got
You guys
back
were like,
from the
oh,
city.
we
Like,
only
walked
have to
over
go
the
into the
Queens
city?
Bridge,
Yeah, yeah,
or over the
yeah, yeah.
Queensboro Bridge, you know, and like all the way down. We were in like uptown earlier this afternoon. And it's like, that doesn't feel like that far away anymore.
Yeah,
Or
we're
like if
totally
you're biking,
distorted.
or if you're doing like,
Yeah.
For sure. You guys probably have such a different idea of the city than a majority of people.
It
At this
definitely
point,
gives
it's
you a
like
different perspective.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so now, like, especially now when I hear something like that, that's referenced, like, I had to go all the way out to Brooklyn. I'm like, shut up.
Like, piece of cake. Come on.
Like, it's not
Yeah.
very far at all.
We should pivot to talking about your music, because we said we wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what direction you want to go with. I know you're doing a music video soon, and you also had an album come out recently. Was it an EP or an LP? Or?
Yeah, it was more like an EP.
Yeah.
But I call it an album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it was under Hershguy.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, I was just like not really doing anything, so I just like recorded an album in my room. And it turned out pretty good.
Nice.
And I love to record stuff and then let it sit for a while because I love to revisit things because it gets me more motivated to finish them.
Yeah.
Whereas if I try to rush it to get finished, then I won't be completely satisfied.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I'm making something, I'll be like, oh, I don't know how this sounds. I don't really like it. And then if I check on it about 2 weeks later and it sounds good, that's how I know that it's something to continue with.
Nice.
That's a cool process.
Thanks, yeah. 9 times out of 10, when I first recorded, I'm like, whatever, this is garbage.
Right.
I don't care, it's stupid.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back to it 2 weeks later. I'll be like, definitely.
Nice.
All right, I'm down. So that's kind of how all the songs became what they were.
Nice.
Nice. It's good to know that's your process. I think some people just get to this as trash and never revisit it, you know? Like,
Totally.
And that's a
Yeah.
shame.
Sometimes it takes a little more energy than I'd like to actually revisit. But
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I do, it's always worth it.
Nice.
You were saying the other day that you've been, like, since the beginning of COVID, going back and forth with one of your friends. Is that how you made that album, too? Did you, like, send it to someone to review, or is it all just, like, on your own?
A lot of the main parts of the music were on my own, but here and there I'll have a guitar track that's my friend Joey, or a guitar track that's Nat. And on a couple of songs, I actually had some friends like help me with like lyrics and melodies. So it's a very collaborative effort. Couldn't have done it without some of my friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I have a new album coming out with my friend Josephine, and she and I went back and forth with, like, I would send her a drum beat, and then she'd come back with, like, guitar tracks and vocals, and then we'd, like, shape it. And a couple months go by, and now we have a whole album. We showed it to our friend Tim, who works a record label called Dig, and he's going to put it out.
Nice.
Put it out on vinyl, so it's all like this it's kind of like this quarantine project that ended up actually being something, and I like it because it actually has a story to it.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, we're putting out a new album. It's like, oh, we were both going crazy in our rooms, banging our heads against the wall. We were sending each other tracks, and it just all fell into place. Anyways.
Nice.
Yeah. Is that going to be under Hershguy or Josephine, or like a new name?
It's going to be Josephine and Hershguy.
Cool.
Nice. And is there any, like, internet way people can follow, like, when this will come out, or any?
Yeah, if you follow Hershguy on Instagram
Nice.
or Josephine Network,
Nice.
Cool.
either one.
Nice.
And then you're recording a music video this weekend.
Yeah.
That's just Hershguy though,
That's
right?
just Hershguy. It's just out of fun. My friend really wants to make a video, and he really likes the song. And I have no plans for this song at the moment, but he has a bunch of ideas for the video.
Oh, cool.
So we're kind of just doing it while we can.
Making it happen. It'll be like a single release.
Yeah.
I was listening to it yesterday, and then I listened to it with Mike today, that song, and I was wondering, did you do everything on that song?
I had Josephine play one guitar track on it.
Okay, but you did because there's multiple, I didn't notice this yesterday, I didn't notice till the fourth listen, but there's multiple vocal tracks.
Yeah, we doubled the vocal tracks.
But it's all you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. I know for you guys that make music, it's probably so straightforward, but it blows my mind to understand how it can all come together and just be, it's like a one-man band, but you don't have to actually have it all attached to you at once.
Yeah. You can have 4 of you. Yeah, it's incredible. I just started working on I did most of my last album on a 4-track Tascam cassette 4-track, and these new recordings I'm doing right onto my computer on Logic. Man, was I late to the game.
Yeah.
I should have been doing this 10 years ago. It's it's incredible.
That's awesome.
So it's been great tracking on and I like to keep organized too.
Yeah.
So organizing all your tracks is a lot easier.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
I've been having a great time with that over the pandemic.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, man. This
Thanks
is
for
really a
having
lot
me.
of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great.
I really want to check out some of those spots, actually. I actually do want to go to that soup kitchen.
Yes,
It's great.
It's
great.
so tasty. And yeah, it's worth it just to feel like you're in a little bit of that world.
For sure.
Yeah. Try the bisque.
Yeah, I will.
I mentioned it now, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it. Thanks for watching or listening or however you took this in. Thanks for taking it in.
Yep. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this Seinfeld extravaganza. Odyssey. I think that's what I wanted to say, Odyssey. If this is your first time joining us, please do the liking, the subscribing, the sharing, all that stuff so that we can continue, getting the word out about walking 5 marathons a week around New York City.
Yeah, we got to tell everyone. We want everyone to know that this is an option for
That's
how
true.
you can live your life if you so choose.
That's right. And next week I think we're going to be doing an on the road episode, so that should be a little fun.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah. But until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye.